allow me to, take you on the journey or the process of the making of a Negro, okay? First of all, there's no other entity that's been co-opted like the black mind. There's no other entity. There's no other entity throughout the entire world that have been co-opted like the black mind. And it's the co-opting of the black mind that have allowed us to become docile as a people. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself the question, what is a Negro? I'm serious. We hear this term so often, but have you ever asked yourself the question, what is a Negro? Where did he come from? Okay. Now, if you go off European literature, or if you go off European history, it would suggest that Negroes are a group of dark-skinned people that come from Africa, which I found that to be alternative facts. And it's this type of misinformation that people of color embrace as the truth that have allowed us to form an all-centered perspective concerning our history and our purpose. So what is the Negro? Sincerely, I'm asking a question. What is the Negro? I think this is something we need to address as a community, and we need to see where this term come from, because the term within itself is just a sophisticated slave metaphor. So what is the Negro? Well, history will show, if we look at history, not my opinion, not your opinion, but if we will look at history and be unbiased, history will show that the Negro is less than a man because he was stripped of his manhood. If we will ask, what is a Negro? History will show that the Negro is less than a woman because she was stripped of her innocence, her virtue. She was taught to hate her hair, her lips, her culture. So what is a Negro? History will show that a Negro, or that the Negro, is a European creation. It is. The Negro is a European creation, and it's probably his best and most prized creation because it allowed the person of color to keep the outward melanated shell while simultaneously compromising their thoughts and reprogramming, wiring their mind to be fearful, to feel inferior, and to be grateful to the European system of reality.
I know you all wonder why I keep these things in my house. They make you uncomfortable. Me too. That's why I keep them here. Ivory, stone, wood, bronze. Don't gawk, boy. Get that tray filled. Boy! Did you hear me?
Yes, master.
Don't talk back to me. Replenish the tray. I just ordered a darky out of this room. Do you know anything about him? From his facial characteristics, his people probably came from the Songhai tribe, the area around Timbuktu. 300 years ago, they had a university there, where the most delicate operations were performed for cataracts of the eye. People came from all over the world to have their sight restored by these extraordinary black surgeons. I believe origins can crop up even after 10 generations, unless they're kept weeded out. What do we create? Surgeons? Sculptors? Or niggers?
European system of reality consists of three parts. That's economics, that's politics, and that's religion. And once you start to examine those three parts, you will see that how that the European system of reality is designed to facilitate global dominance. That's why when you start to hear people of color talk about, well, I'm awoke, I'm awakened, I'm conscious, they're referring to them disconnecting from the European system of reality. They're referring to them going through the process of the decolonization of their mind, because they understand there's nothing in the European system of reality that is designed to benefit them. The blueprint of the European system of reality was never designed to birth kings and queens as it pertained to people of color. It was never designed to birth gods and goddesses. The only thing the European system of reality was designed to do as it pertains to people of color was to birth niggas and bed wenches.
One of the most important things that we have to do as a people is make sure we do a thorough research as far as history, the Constitution, from a political aspect, what laws were passed, how did they view us? And because in school, they teach us history from a biased standpoint. So that's why, every week I try to go to the library, go to different bookstores and find information, dig up information to make sure that I'm well-rounded and that I do my due diligence to seek after the truth. That's all it boils down is to the truth. 1776. This is where it's 1776. This is where it started. The Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, and the Articles of Confederation. 1776, which was modified with a 3/5 compromise in 1787. So now, let's look at the 3/5 compromise. The 3/5 compromise of 1787. Because like I say, everyone always believes that this is where it states that people of color are only viewed as 3/5 of a man, and that's not entirely true. Okay, it didn't have really anything directly to do with people of color, because you would just consider to be property. Okay, so let's read it here. Okay, representative and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within the Union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians, not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. That's all it says. Because you was not considered a free person. You was only going to be taxed. You was going to be worth 3/5 when it pertains to taxes, and 3/5 when it pertains to representation or population. You would never say you was 3/5 of a man, because you wasn't viewed as a man. You was viewed as chattel.
Now it's interesting to see back in 1783, when the issue is taxation, do you count slaves? The Northerners say slaves are people, they should be counted. Southerners who don't want their taxes raised say no, slaves are property, they should not be counted. Now the situation is reversed. In the Constitutional Convention, the Northern delegates say slaves should not be counted because they're property. The Southerners say, yes, slaves should be counted because they are people. And so it was, again, they said, let's go to the number we know, 3/5, the federal ratio, and we'll use that. So that's how the 3/5 clause got into the Constitution. In the ratification debate, you get disagreement over this. The Northerners are upset that 3/5 of the slaves are being counted. They think that's unfair, that will encourage slavery, and that more slaves will be imported so that there'll be greater representation of the Southern states. The Southerners are, for the most part, happy with the 3/5. They would have liked 5/5.
But this is something that was built into the Constitution on how the American Negro should be governed. That's why I don't trust the system. How can you trust a system that takes 89 to 99 years to change his mind about you? How can you trust that system? And people are quick to say, well, you can't live in the past. No, I'm not living in the past. I just learn. I look in the past, learn from the past, and understand we cannot, I'm not naive enough, and I don't have enough patience for this system. The system was never built for you. The system was always built against you. Politics, policy, and you expected me to be patriotic. You gained your freedom in 1776, and you had every reason to be patriotic. In 1776, I was given a policy on how I should be governed. At the end of the day, your economic status does not change your social status, because to the European system of reality, you still a nigga.
Now, why would I say that your economic status doesn't change your social status? Because to the European system of reality, you're still a nigga. Now, let me clarify something. When I say the European system of reality, the making of the American Negro, I understand that Negro is not a new term, but it's America's Negro that I'm putting emphasis on. And the so-called Negro in North America is still dealing with the lingering effects of slavery, racism, capitalism, and the overall exploitation of a people. But now let's get into this. Let's talk about how the American Negro has evolved, or America's Negro has evolved. Now, during slavery, anytime a people are oppressed, they're either going to be united because of that oppression, or it's going to divide them even more. And in slavery, we had what they called the house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro felt like he was better than the field Negro because he was in the house. And he was able to eat the leftovers in master's house. And he was able to sleep in master's house. But to the master, the house Negro and the field Negro, they was both still just Negroes. Now, let me fast forward this. This is gonna get very interesting. Let me get past Civil War, Reconstruction, and let me go into the 20th century. The early 1900s, where we see a black leader rise by the name of Marcus Garvey. Now, very powerful in the 1900s, early 1900s, very powerful brother. Pan-Africanism, believe in black nationalism, unite black people, let's all go back to Africa. Considered very dangerous, a very threat to the United States, to the point that they assigned a young J. Edgar Hoover, who also was born in the late 1800s. FBI assigned a young J. Edgar Hoover to Marcus Garvey's case. And J. Edgar Hoover successfully implanted a black informant in Marcus Garvey's organization that helped dismantle Marcus Garvey's organization and ultimately had him exiled out of America. Let's fast forward this into the 60s. 63, you have the assassination of Medgar Evers in Mississippi, civil rights leader. In 1965, you have Malcolm X that's assassinated. 1968, you have Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated. In 1969, you have Fred Hampton, one of the leaders of the Black Panthers parties, assassinated. Now, what did Malcolm X, who was assassinated in 1965,
Martin Luther King, who was assassinated in 1968, and Fred Hampton, who was assassinated in 1969. What do all three of these brothers have in common? The FBI director called J. Edgar Hoover. Garvey, Malcolm, Martin, and Hampton all had to deal with J. Edgar Hoover. And J. Edgar Hoover implemented a plan called COINTELPRO that was hiring black men and women to infiltrate the organic black grassrooted organizations and fabricate lies to dismantle those organizations and ultimately assassinate those leaders. Now, COINTELPRO is still used today because America's Negro is fascinated by the American dream. Now, ask yourself this: why is the NAACP still around? If they was a threat to white supremacy, or so-called white supremacy, because there's nothing supreme about those group of people. If the black church was a threat to so-called white supremacy, if the NAACP was a threat to so-called white supremacy, then why haven't the FBI infiltrated and dismantled these organizations? Put your feelings aside. I'm coming from an unbiased perspective based upon history and facts. The NAACP is not a grassrooted organic black organization. Google the founding members of the NAACP and you will see that there are white people, Caucasians, sprinkled with some black people. And the reason why the NAACP was formed and white people was part of it, it wasn't because they was concerned about the plight of people of color. They was there to monitor the plight of people of color and add their ideals, their agendas, and their opinions concerning the progression and the liberation of our own people. The American Negro, from my point of view, he's our color, but he's not our kind. And going forward, it's impossible for me to give you everything in this particular trailer. But going forward, we're going to talk about Malcolm and those that was around Malcolm as far as deals with COINTELPRO. We're going to bring up the Nation of Islam, because the Nation of Islam did say some very damning things against Malcolm. We're going to talk about whether or not they had their hand in working with the government getting assassinated or not. I'm unbiased. I think highly of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, but there are certain things he said online. But I will say this too: there's certain things that a young Farrakhan said that I don't think an older, more mature, seasoned, full of wisdom Farrakhan would say. But there's a lot of speculation on that, so we're gonna get in that. Was that part of COINTELPRO? Who around Martin could have sold him out? Because it's been reported and documented that, and he has said it himself, Reverend R. Sharpen, that he's a government forming agent. He's admitted that. We have to look at Garvey, who was around him. Some people y'all like and admire. Can I name drop? W.E. Du Bois. We won't get into it now. Fred Hampton, the Black Panther Party, was assassinated. Are you aware that that informant is still walking around on the streets? Why is it that the government fears, J. Edgar Hoover feared of the Black Messiah, of a rising of a black man or woman that will unite people of color? Our liberation should have never been discussed or organized with individuals outside of our own particular people. When we can look at Haiti or the Haitians, their oppression brought them together to the point that they fought for their liberation. It wasn't until they allowed outsiders to come in and invade, change the laws through pressure that they're going through what they're going through now. So going forward, we're gonna use this trailer to talk about subject matters that people need to be aware of. And you have to make your decision
or who you're going to align yourself with. I'm Tyrus Barnes, and I'm just saying.